Welcome to yet another session from Heartfulness Wellness. And the topic for today's webinar is Mind Detox, Clear the Clutter Within. Mind is a beautiful friend and the worst enemy. In other words, it can be your servant as well as your master. On an average, in a day, 60 to 70,000 thoughts cross through your mind. Imagine the number of thoughts that can cross. But the most amount of thoughts are negative in nature. Have you observed that? So that thus is the need to detoxify it, to declutter it, so that we can use our mind to the optimum at its most, productive levels. And to discuss this topic, I have with me a very special guest. His name is Dr. Ashish Johri. Dr. Ashish is a principal consultant with Synergie HR. He's presently based in Jaipur. He's a versatile behavior trainer for various types of corporate and academic training requirements. And he, speaks extensively on personal excellence, authentic leadership, NLP, emotional intelligence, and positive psychology. His 15 years of extensive and exclusive experience lies in the field of HR and behavioral training. So, and also from over 30 years, he has been meditating with Heartfulness system. So welcome, Dr. Ashish.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kritika. It's a lovely experience and pleasure to be here, to be talking to you and to all my lovely audience out there.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I hope the same for you.
Okay. So, Dr. Ashish, you know what? I'm sitting in Ayodhya right now. You are sitting in Jaipur. Thanks to this technology that we are connected like
Indeed.
This. And because in this lockdown times, it's very difficult to really step out of our house and, there is crisis all around.
Indeed.
And yes, there are situations external, but, the mindset of some people have become that they have locked themselves up in their own mind.
Indeed.
And there is fear, there is panic, anxiety all over. People who are, not able to kind of deal with their thoughts and emotions, they are facing sleepless nights, not able to do, they're not able to concentrate on anything. And hence, I feel is the relevance of the topic. What do you feel? Why is this topic relevant in these times?
See, not only in today's times, not only in these trying times, this aspect of our existence has been very much relevant since times immemorial. It's only that in times of crisis, our attention, our focus turns to this kind of aspects. If you go by Indian tradition, and if you go by what is outlined in Gita, in Sankhya Yoga, they talk about something known as the Tribuna Theory. It talks about mind as having three different characteristics, or gunas as they say. The Sattvic guna, the Rajasic guna, and the Tamasic guna. So Sattvic guna is characterized by enlightenment, thirst for knowledge, concern for others. The Rajasic guna is characterized by action, ambition, and the Tamasic guna is characterized by inertia. Based on the predominance of one particular guna, the mind's tendencies and hence the entire personality gets created around them. So Indian tradition has always been very rich in that it has always laid an emphasis on the regulation of mind, on the beauty of mind, on the importance of mind in crafting a life which is worth living. So in that case, if I look at it, this topic has always been very, very relevant, very, very important, very, very source of guidance and a kind of roadmap wherein we can live our life, lead our life in a better way. However, if you look by in the Western tradition, prominent speakers like, for example, Louise Hay, who have been ardent exponent, they talk about this same concept of sattvic mind, and she relates it beautifully with Ayurveda, and she talks about the connection of mind with body and how by healing the mind, the body can be healed and vice versa. So she speaks very enthusiastically and very emphatically about the reciprocal connection between the mind and the body. But unfortunately, as you rightfully said in your opening remarks, the mind that we carry with us today is burdened with fear, with frustration, with anger, with anxiety and anticipation and ambition and avarice and greed, and talk about all types of emotions, predominantly negative. Uh, so it makes us heavy. It makes this mind heavy. And ironically, the instrument which should have been the instrument from which we could have derived the nectar of life has now become a vessel for venom. So, and that is where this idea of toxification, or this idea of contamination of mind comes in. You see, so in this talk today, we will try to scientifically figure out where or what is the cause of this contamination, what is the cause of this toxification, how this uh, contamination happens, how this toxification happens, and we will try to refer to some scientific evidence, scientific theories, and in trying to understand a bit about mind detox.
Sure, sure. Beautifully said. And the way you related tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, gunas with different aspects of the mind, that's beautiful. That's amazing. So here I would like to ask you, I mean, a lot of thoughts emerge in our mind. Then some people say that they're troubled by their emotions. Some people identify with feelings. And then some people say that, they're facing a lot of mood swings. So this question has been there, that is there a difference between feeling, emotion and mood? And if yes, then how does, these kind of things, emotions, play a role in the functioning of the mind?
Okay. Thank you for asking that. There is definitely a clear-cut demarcation between emotions, moods, and feelings. Although they come from the same family, they are interrelated, and their boundaries seem to merge. Going classically by the definition, emotion is something that will produce an action, a specific action. It is specific. You can pinpoint. For example, you feel anger. So you can pinpoint the point where you felt something, and that was anger. And that anger predisposed you to some action. Mood is much more generalized, much more diffuse. You cannot pinpoint where it has started, how it has started. In many cases, or rather in almost all the cases, the precursor to that is an emotion which you felt. You see? So that is where the differentiation is, number one. Number two, as I said, emotions will predispose you to some action. Mood does not predispose you to any action. Mood is just a generalized kind of thing, a diffuse kind of thing that is just hanging there. When you talk about feeling, it is a physical sensation that you feel, more on the affective side, not effective, affective side. You see, like butterflies in the stomach, that's a feeling. You feel that. How you feel that? Because there is an emotion of anxiety. So anxiety or fear is an emotion. Butterflies is a sensation that you feel. So butterflies in the stomach becomes a feeling. All right. That is how these three are, connected. Do I answer your question?
Yeah, of course. And that's why maybe it's the moods are referred to mood swings, because they kind of swing from one to the other.
Indeed.
Yeah. Completely agree. And I also heard from somebody that emotion is nothing but energy in motion.
In a way, if you look at the etymology of this word emotion, it has got some motion or some action inherent in it, in its meaning. And that is why every emotion is linked with an action. Now, as far as their interplay is concerned, or as far as their connection with mind is concerned, think of mind as a stage, okay? A stage that we have at auditoriums. And think of thoughts, emotions, feelings, cognition, anything you say, as actors who come to play their part. So mind becomes a stage where the action of these entities, these actors, if I may call them, becomes manifest.
Yeah.
The audience that comes to watch this act are the people around us. So they see what these actions, what these characters, what these actors perform. So they see our act, as you say that. And there is also a backstage. So this backstage is what goes off inside our mind. You see? So that is how I understand it.
That's beautiful. I think all the world is a stage and all men and women are characters.
Characters.
Is what a famous poet said.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Here
but
in this case, the emotions and the actors inside our brain, inside us, they become actors, and their act is visible for the world to see. So our action, or in a way, if you put it this way, our entire behavior is a reflection of the entire mental processes, the actions that we take, and that behavior is visible to the world around us, which is our audience.
right. It's beautiful to understand it this way, metaphorically, because it feels that every human being, then the mind becomes the stage, and there are so many characters, there are so many, colors of those characters within your own mind.
Indeed.
It's a, if you are an explorer by nature, then you may like to kind of explore all these colors and pick up what benefits you and reject what is not serving you anymore.
Indeed.
So when we talk about the word emotion,
Yeah.
does it hold a scientific basis, or it's just an abstract concept? Because many logical people, the scientist people, they say that emotions is nothing. It's logic which works. But like me, who are poetic by nature, they feel that I'm operating from that emotional side of myself. So is a human being emotional being or a logical being, or because we generally connect logic to scientific to a scientific basis, but so
Indeed.
so does it hold a scientific basis?
It definitely does. It definitely does. And now that you ask this question, somewhere in late 1950s and 1960s, when this branch opened up, there were extensive studies. So the earliest studies on emotions, they document the case of a railroad worker known as Phineas Cage, who was injured in a railroad accident. And what happened was that while he was putting dynamite while he was working on to lay that railroad, he put some dynamite somewhere, and the dynamite accidentally went off. With the result, there was this iron rod which got implanted in his face. So this rod, it entered his face from below his jawline and burst through his skull, moving behind his left eye, creating a kind of fracture in the skull and an opening in the skull. Miraculously, Phineas Cage survived that accident, but when he came back after recovery from the hospital, after having multiple surgeries and multiple complications, he somehow survived. But the Phineas Cage that came back from the hospital was a different individual altogether. He had changed. His emotions had changed. His entire personality has changed. And that is where we started thinking that emotions play an active role in impacting the behavior. As time moved by, as imaging instruments and imaging technology became more advanced, we started correlating our theories or our ideas with what exactly went on in the brain. And that was where psychology moved from a discipline of philosophy and humanities into actual brain science. So today we have technology like EEG, which is highly advanced version, which records structures and activities deep inside the brain. Okay, we have technology like functional MRI, which measures blood supply to particular areas of the brain, and we can prove for sure that the inner workings of the brain, the theories, the ideas that we have, what we have been putting forth, they hold a scientific value. Even if I talk about neuroimaging techniques, I'm talking about PET, the PET scans, the positron emitting tomography scans, which measure to the level of the neurotransmitter. They put some dye into it and they measure the activity of that. So all of this has a scientific, definitely a very, very scientific basis, and everything has a proof, has an evidence. Having said so, scientists, neuroscientists, behavioral scientists have identified centers in the brain which are responsible for our emotional circuitry. For example, there is a structure known as amygdala. So amygdala is a structure which is buried deep inside the brain, which is a part of circuitry, brain circuitry known as limbic system, which governs our emotions. It has been widely implicated in experiencing negative emotions like fear. Okay. Similarly, there is this structure associated with the amygdala known as the hippocampus. Again, a structure which lies deep inside the brain. Through neuroimaging techniques, we have been able to study their functioning, and we have been finding out what it does. And hippocampus plays a very important role. It creates the context in which you experience a particular emotion. Like, for example, you go to your family, your house, and you feel happy. So the context created, right? What made you experience that context? It was the hippocampus. People with post-traumatic stress disorders, okay, or with depression, who experience emotion out of their context. What does a depressive patient do? A depressive patient, a patient who is into depression, he experiences sadness out of context with the surroundings, isn't it? Or someone who's suffering from phobia, he experiences fear out of the context more than the other people. Why? Because we have been shown that the hippocampus has been disordered. So all this has been possible based on the techniques that have evolved. So we have moved uh, very closely now towards creating or believing in a scientific basis of emotions. Having said this, let me tell you one more thing. From times immemorial, it has been conjectured, it has been thought that the limbic system is the sole system which exists in the brain, which has been the sole system for controlling or regulating our emotions. But recent researches have implicated the role of the frontal lobe of the brain, the part of the brain which sits right behind my forehead. The frontal lobe is also the seat of intelligence. Okay, so there are parts of the brain which are seats of intelligence, which are seats of reasoning, which are seats of logic, and this part of the brain has got extensive connections with amygdala, which is supposed to be the seat of emotion, a part of the seat of emotions, limbic system. So you see that now scientists have discovered that even reasoning is connected with emotion. So the boundaries have dissolved.
True,
You
true,
see,
true.
and that is why we talk in terms of emotional intelligence, uh,
Right, right.
that it is a unique form of intelligence that exists. That till now, emotions and intelligence have been two things which have been understood to be separate, but now we see convergence, or rather, I would say we see a mergence between these two entities, and all this has been possible because of the scientific understanding of emotions.
True, true. I mean, as you said that word emotional intelligence, I was thinking it that, you know, that's why these two terms are brought together. And I feel that you must have convinced all the people who feel that, you know, emotions are maybe, if a person is too emotional by nature, if a, you know, we put certain labels to the person,
Indeed.
and then we say that they are emotional by nature, and so they might not be intelligent or logical in their approaches.
Hmm.
So that's not the case. That's very well said. Very well said. Though my background of my studies lies in technology. I did my master's in chemical engineering, but I feel that I'm bent towards my right brain or the creative side of it, and I operate from there. So most of the terms probably which you said I might not have also understood because you're a doctor. So I completely kind of agree that those scientific terms are definitely, they actually prove that emotions do have a scientific basis. So as we were, talking about that some people face fear, anxiety, depression, these are the negative emotions.
Yes,
But a
indeed.
human being generally, like all of us, want to feel positive all the time.
Hmm.
Okay. Suddenly something happens and we feel like, something is not fine within myself and I need to return back to the happy emotion. So, can emotions be categorized as positive, negative, good, bad? And also, like, are we only supposed to experience positive emotions all the time?
That's a very good question. And as humans, we do tend to think in terms of dualities. So either something is for us or something is not for us. Either something is positive or something is negative. Either something is this or something is that. When because we have been trained, we have been conditioned, we have been groomed to think of in these two kinds of extremes. Hence, this entire dichotomy exists. I would say that emotions at a personal level, I don't categorize them as positive or negative, as good or bad. Once you understand how they work, actually it is about what they create, what they lead to, what is the outcome of those emotions. So I would rather talk about the states that they create. Okay, so every emotion will create a state inside you. So if you experience joy, it will create an emotional state of happiness inside you. If you experience fear, or it will create another state, peculiar state, a state of anticipation, of anxiety inside you. And what matters is whether is this state a desired state or an undesired state. On that you will categorize or characterize the emotion. So we talk in terms of empowering states and disempowering states. A particular emotion will lead to a particular type of a state, whether it is an empowering state or disempowering state. So if I say in these terms, what kind of state is there which you desire at that particular moment? And that is what the differentiation comes. Having said this, I would also like to talk about, spoke about about negative emotions. In Buddhist tradition, they talk about afflictive emotions, and they talk about three poisons rather in the context of emotion. And those three poisons are anger, craving, and delusion. Okay, kleshas we call it in if you go by Indian context. They are afflictions which, so to say, create disempowering states, which lead to outcomes which are not desirous. So scientists, when they were studying these three emotional states, these three emotional negative emotions, they found out that emotional generation is a complex activity, and it is controlled by different centers inside the brain. Okay, so anger can be characterized as anger which is not expressed, but which is turned inwards. That is a form of anger. Anger is also associated with sadness. Another type of anger which is directed outwards, which comes out as rage. And there is also an anger which is, how can I put it, more constructive, something which involves overcoming an obstacle. I'll try to elaborate as I move further. And when they investigated, they found that there are different centers in the brain which are involved in our experiencing of anger. See, in humans, if you look at their brain structure, the ratio of the frontal lobe, which I was talking about, to the rest of the brain, humans possess the highest ratio. That is, their frontal lobe, in comparison to the rest of the brain, is highly developed, most highly developed in humans than in rest of the animals. So it would be safe to presume that the intelligence that we possess, the capacity of processing that we possess, can or might be associated with the frontal lobe. And that is where the seat of intelligence is. So anger is produced in amygdala, but controlled and regulated by frontal lobe. And if you look at frontal lobe, you understand there are two parts of the brain, the right lobe and the left lobe. It was found that the left lobe is concerned with feeling or with the more of positive emotions, and the right lobe is concerned more with the right frontal lobe has the seat for more of the negative emotions. When these brain studies were done, it was found that people who experienced anger of the first three categories, anger which was turned inwards, anger which was came out in the form of rage. They had activity of amygdala along with the activity in the left side of the brain. But let's take an example. Say, for example, a tiny tot, a baby. You give an attractive toy to that baby. He or she wants to reach out, but you restrain that. But you restrain the baby. So what he does is it tries to reach out to get that toy. Understand the situation? In this situation, it was found that the left frontal lobe showed activity. The portion of the brain which controls positive emotion. See, in adults, the same thing can be translated while solving a complex mathematical problem. You coming from engineering background, you can understand that when there is a problem to be solved, you feel anger or frustration, but that frustration actually motivates you to achieve your obstacle, achieve your outcome, your goal. And that is where the activation of the left frontal lobe comes in. So you see the same emotion in different condition moving from one extreme to another. You see, and that is what I've been saying, that the boundaries they seem to have dissolved, and that is where the regulation of such emotion becomes of critical importance. That the emotion which could have had a destructive effect, which could have had a negative effect, also has the potential to convert into a positive impact if and only if utilized properly. And there is a scientific basis to that. Coming back to the second so-called negative emotion, that is craving, as per the Buddhist tradition I was talking about. There is circuitry in the brain, which is known as the rewarding circuitry, which has presence of a chemical neurotransmitter known as dopamine. So in all the circuits, in all the situations which are related to craving, you see, this chemical has been found one way or the other. This has been one, the culprit. Not only craving in terms of drugs, in which it has been studied, but also pathological craving in activities such as gambling. You see, this circuitry has been formed to be of importance. And there is a structure known as nucleus accumbens, which is found to be rich in dopamine, which has been the center of all this. So again, there is an emotion, there is a situation of craving which generates, and there is a chemical which has been found as in connection with this kind of situation. There's a scientific evidence to it. Talk about delusion, it is emotion which are clouding our perception. You see that? So as I was, one thing that which I could understand from this is that emotions, they have a scientific basis, and each emotion can move from two extremes, and that is where regulation becomes absolutely important. And that is why practices of meditation which result or which contribute towards regulation of mind are so very important.
True that. So by whatever you said, I completely agree to them. And I also feel that people who try to escape from the so-called negative emotions,
indeed,
maybe that's not the right way to deal with them.
Indeed.
If you can completely feel that negative emotion, whether it is pain, fear, anxiety, whatever it is, even if you are feeling like crying, cry. At least it will kind of make you light at the end of the day. Indeed. So I think feeling that even if it is negative in nature, or whatever you said, that there are two extremes, even if it's at one extreme which is not contributing to you, but feeling that completely within yourself actually helps in transforming that emotion so that it can go to the other extreme.
Absolutely. And another thought that I would like to add from what you just said is that it is about our response. You see, so if our response is moderated, if our response is something that we learn to regulate, and that will come from regulating the mind, and there are techniques available. Meditation is one of them, meditation results in regulation of mind, and it helps in modifying our reactions. You see, we talk in terms of a concept in neuropsychology, and that is neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is about neurons which transform into new connections. When we learn something new, there's a group of stem cells from which new neurons are formed. And again, this is a scientific breakthrough that we came to know, that initially we used to think that the number of neurons which are formed from birth, they remain constant, they don't grow, they don't multiply, they are constant. But recent researchers have said that no, that is not the case. Neurons also, like other cells of the body, grow old, die out, wither away, and new neurons are formed, and especially so when we learn new skills. So this implies that experience changes the brain. Experience has got the capacity to change brain. Environment has an impact on the brain. And let me also share with you the fact that studies have documented that a nurturing environment, now that is important to study here, a nurturing environment has an impact on learning how to regulate our emotion. So there are molecules which lead to gene expression which control these two entities: regulation of emotion and nurturing environment. Okay. Now imagine a household which has that kind of atmosphere, that kind of nurturing atmosphere in which we create that environment where our children develop. Imagine the emotional, intelligent kind breed that we would be creating for our future. And that is why it is absolutely important to create the right kind of climate within our households.
True that. I mean, I completely relate with this because when I moved out of my town to another city, and that was a hostel, and many people from around India were there, and I actually felt a cultural setback over there. I was not well equipped to handle my thoughts, my emotions, which mostly were negative. So there were feeling of low self-confidence, and how do I talk to this person? And so, though I was doing extremely good in academics, so to say, I scored well in my boards. But then those 2 years, I felt that I have not lived completely. And the reason is because the atmosphere which you are saying, I was not nurtured in that way. I mean, no schools, colleges teach you this very specific thing, which is very important for the education of a child also. So I think as you spoke about moderation of the mind, so would I be accurate in saying that a balanced mind is actually a playhouse of the balanced emotions?
Absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. Absolutely. That is how it is. That is how it translates out to it. You see, a balanced mind is a playhouse of balanced emotion. Beautifully said. Let me share with you a thought here. See, we talk in terms of something known as a refractory period when it comes to emotion. I mean, uh, roughly translated, it means that how much how much time you have been in the grip of an emotion. How long does it take for you to experience an emotion, be in that state, and come back to the baseline? Okay, so that is what the recovery phase or the refractory period is. And it has been again documented that people who uh, witnessed an emotion, who went to that state and recovered early, okay, were people who showed less activity in their amygdala and more activity in their left frontal lobe. You see, documented. See, it there's this gland known as adrenal gland, which sits on the this thing, kidneys, but is regulated and affected by the uh, emotional circuit. Okay, it releases a hormone known as cortisol. Cortisol is supposed to be the stress hormone. It results in rising of blood pressure, increasing of heart, and all those stress symptoms. People with a more calm, more balanced mind showed lesser levels of cortisol. It means they experience stress or anxiety less than the other population. Then people with more balanced mind, they showed more happiness hormones inside them. You see, their because this frontal lobe has got extensive connections in autonomic systems and endocrine system, less fluctuations in blood pressure and breathing patterns, also a increase in the immunity or the natural killer cells. So emotional health is directly connected, related with the physical health, and that is how, when the emotional maturity or the emotional balance state exists, not only your mind gets better, the body also gets better.
Yeah, I think it's vice versa. That's why it's called psychosomatic disorders, because
Indeed.
the certain emotions which are triggered in your mind, and if they are negative in nature, let's say, and if you're brooding about them, then your body also gets affected. And I have experienced that too in my case.
See?
So, Dr. Ashish, here I would like to ask you, because you mentioned meditation a few minutes back, that practices like meditation do help in moderating the mind and help in creating that balance within yourself. So, what has been your personal experience with meditation? Because I know that you have been meditating for over 30 years now.
Yes, indeed.
Share something on that.
Well, fortunately for me, it was a natural transition, because whatever I said, what all I shared in past few minutes with you, I have witnessed it firsthand. I come from a family who have been associated with meditation. My father, my mother, and they kind of created that kind of environment where I would see, I would them, doing their daily sadhana and daily meditations, and I could see that impact which they carry. And so all that which I learned, which I read later in researches, I've already seen that firsthand. So that was a very big influence on me. How it helped me, uh, if I look at my life and in everybody's life, there are times wherein you have to take drastic decisions, decisions which defy conventional wisdom. These are moments of truths. These are moments in which only you can take those decisions. It happens with all of us, and I've been able to take that decisions because the mental state required to make uh, informed decisions, right decisions at that point of time, it helped me in creating that. Number one. Number two, what it helped me was in creating a perspective of life. You understand, our understanding of life is the compass which guides us how we carry our life, and how we live our life is what makes life livable. You see, so clarity as to that perspective, clarity as to that goal, clarity as to the way you carry yourself, that clarity was developed through meditation, and that is how meditation helped me in doing that.
So, I know that there have been researchers into meditation, but would you like to share something about the scientific basis of it? Like, how does it really help in balancing your mind? How does meditation help?
See, researches are still going on. We talk about the research papers. They talk about how meditation has resulted in a regulation of health, how mental conditions have improved, how blood pressures have gone down, and as I was mentioning, how cortisol levels have been regulated. There's a huge body of literature, if you see, which is available. And as a matter of fact, there is in a science a field of a study which is known as affective neuroscience, or offshoot of cognitive neuroscience, which talks about the same thing. If you go through works of Richard Davidson, he has done extensive work, and that is why we are talking in terms of mindfulness, and we're talking in terms of heartfulness for that matter, how meditation is impacting our lives, and we are now doing scientific study. As a matter of fact, our Heartfulness Institute has tied up with a couple of universities, both in India and abroad. We are conducting extensive studies. Pretty soon there's already a whole body of literature that is available, which tells us how it can impact our physical bodies, and how what is the scientific basis of it. And having said that, I would also like to share that some of the practices which heartfulness meditation talks about, like meditation we have been talking about, so the process which they follow, their methodology, which is a modified form of Raj Yoga as enunciated by Patanjali himself. And in this, their meditation, they utilize the power of yogic transmission, which is a unique feature. All the systems of meditation, they somehow end up, or they try to achieve, or they set out the objective as the regulation of mind, which leads to more regulation of this emotional circuitry, which leads to a better balanced emotional health, emotional mind, and this health, spills out to every aspect of the life. Second thing, which is very, very unique with the heartfulness system, is this process of cleaning, wherein you try to, what shall I say, cleanse your thoughts, or samskaras as they call it, right? So a clarity of thoughts, or a purity of thoughts for that matter, leads to a regulation of so-called negative emotions. You see, so we move from disempowering state, which I spoke about earlier, to empowering state. We move from chaos, confusion, disbalance to a state of balance, and it all translates into a better emotional and mental and psychological health and lightness, which I was talking about. And in a way, in one word, if I can say it, it talks about the actual detoxification that we started off with this song.
I mean, you very rightly said that cleaning, the process of cleaning is also very important. And I love that process. I feel that that's the USP of heartfulness, probably, apart from the transmission.
Of course.
Because once, it's like if your cup is full, then what is left to receive?
Indeed.
Hence the need for cleaning, to really declutter it, detoxify it, so that you can absorb the good things in your life, whether it is transmission, the energy. I mean, I don't know the people who are watching us, how many of them are able to understand this word transmission, because if you can, because you have used it, if you can just simplify it for our viewers.
See, it's like, if you talk about cleaning, let me give you the example of a cloth which has been soiled. Okay, of a shirt that you wear maybe on a day here in May, somewhere in North India, when you are sweating, and all the grime and the dust and all is there after a day's work. What do? You take that shirt, take that piece of garment, and you put it into the washing machine to clean it, to wash it. You do it with detergent. So the action of a detergent is to clean the shirt that you have been wearing, which has the sweat, the dust, all the smell and all inside it. And once it is washed, clean, ironed, it is as good as new. You can wear it in a fresh perspective. If you talk in terms of emotions, using the same corollary, the emotional state that is created when we are in the grip of a negative emotion, it is actually an impure state. Impure for the sake of adjective, for the sake of explanation. It is something which we don't want, which is undesirable. Who wants to have that stress? Who wants to have that weight? Who wants to have that burden on the mind? No one. We struggle with that burden, don't we? How we wish that there was something available to us which could help us in offloading that burden. And if you look at it, the greatest burden is the burden of the thought. And a thought can swing to whatever side. It can be as light as a flower, as a feather, a happy thought. You think of your loved ones, you think of achievements, you think of any happy thought, the entire space of the mind becomes light, vibrant, radiant. But you think of a negative thought, and the entire load descends on your head. I dare challenge that. Keep thinking of negative thoughts for 2 minutes and you will already have a headache. And this will implant a state on yourself which would be difficult to carry, and it will impact all the day-to-day activities that we do. So imagine if there is something that we have which can help us overcome this sort of condition. And that is where the system of cleaning in heartfulness becomes important. So when we clean, we sit with that not only thought, but we also apply that willpower that all that is undesirable. So we don't categorize, we don't compartmentalize. There's a generalized term that all that is undesirable to me, undesirable in the sense that it is restricting me, keeping me back, holding me away from something which is beneficial to me, from something which I want to move, which I should move towards, obstructing my way. All that undesirable elements are moving out through my back in the form of a vapor. That is a thought you carry. That is an all your willpower behind this thought. It is only a supposition. There is no smoke, there is no vapor, it doesn't come out, but it is a supposition. And when you do that, so what you are doing, in a way, you are visualizing that. And when you do that, you will feel that the entire darkness, entire negativity, entire weight, it comes out. And
Yeah.
you are left as pure, you are left as lighter, you are left in a better condition which you were before. And the beauty of the system is that it is all experiential. I mean, you do it the way it has been prescribed, you see the results for yourself. And as our Heartfulness Global Guide, who we affectionately call as Daji, he categorically says, this is a kind of experiment that you do, wherein which you are the experimenter, you yourself are the experiment, and you yourself are the vessel on which the experiment is conducted, and you yourself document the results. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, sure. In fact, before this conversation, I also did a 15-minute cleaning, because I wanted to be as fresh and feel light, so that I can start this conversation. Because generally it is suggested that you have to do at the end of the day, because you do your work, you converse with a lot of people, a lot of impressions you gather. But as you said, that if a ketchup kind of falls on your shirt, or if there is a dirt or a stain, you have to wash it immediately.
Indeed.
That burden, just you're able to lift off that.
Indeed.
And that's what Daji also recommends. And that's called spot cleaning. So people who are watching us and want to explore this practice of cleaning, they can visit our Heartfulness meditation YouTube channel. And there's an animation. It's a beautiful video. You will be able to understand what just Dr. Ashish just now explained. And Dr. Ashish, you also mentioned about this word transmission. If in one or two lines you can simplify it for our viewers, that would be
great. Imagine you go to a multi-storied building and you have to go to the top floor. Okay, so how will you go? The first option, of course, is that you will climb the stairs. But if I ask you to climb the stairs, you will laugh at me. You will tell me, Ashish, is there not any other way? So I tell you, there is a lift, which can transport you quickly, conveniently to the desired floor you want to reach. You only have to press the desired button, which floor you want to reach. So obviously, it won't take a Rhodes Scholar to make this choice. People would like to go in with the lift. That is exactly what transmission does. Transmission is a method of transmitting of yogic energy, which helps us in regulating our mind. It cannot be explained, it can be experienced. What transmission is, you will come to understand only once you witness it, you go through that experience. Transmission results in a regulation of our mental tendencies, and a regulated mind can achieve anything and everything possible within human capacity, which are limitless. Anything and everything to which it is directed. Number one. Number two, the essence of life is in balance. Nature itself is an epitome of balance. Our case with us humans has been that we have unfortunately we are still leading an unbalanced life because of an unbalanced mind. Transmission helps us to regulate that mind, to balance that mind, with the result our material and spiritual lives are balanced. And when both these aspects are balanced, we live life in perfect harmony. And this harmony makes us enjoy the nectar of life which it has been designed.
So beautifully said, the nectar of life. And I think each one of us wants to experience that completely, because it's fortunate that we are born as human beings, and though we experience a lot of emotions and feelings and moods and whatever things in this lifetime, but if we can feel that food for the soul, which you also called as transmission, I find it the food for the soul, and it's equally important as having the food for the body and the food for the mind.
Indeed.
And once you take the food for the soul, I feel that your mind also gets regulated, as you also said. It gets balanced, and your health is also fine. So it's all interconnected.
Indeed.
So I should not actually identify ourselves just with the body, because there are layers to our existence, and as one goes deeper into their own selves, they find out themselves. And as Daji also rightly says, that we are the experimenter, we are the experiment. And so each one of you who are watching us, I would request and appeal that take this up as a challenge to go deeper within your own mind and decluttering your own mind in various ways, whatever you feel effective. Heartfulness definitely offers a set of practices like Dr. Ashish just mentioned, cleaning, etc. And cleaning is my favorite, as I just said. You may like to experience all of them too. So thank you, Dr. Ashish, for sharing that words of wisdom. I hope that people who are watching us, must have definitely gained some gems out of this conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much. Lovely speaking with you.
And thank you all the viewers who are watching us right now. It's been extremely wonderful to have interacted with Dr. Ashish, and also having you there to watch us live. And thank you. So if you would like to get in touch with Heartfulness Wellness, more about Heartfulness Wellness, the links are there in the description. You can write to us. There is an app called Hearts App, wherein you can explore different practices offered by Heartfulness Institute. You can read books on our magazine called Heartfulness Magazine. You can download it. If you want to learn meditation one-on-one with a trainer, that too you can find on the Hearts App. You can locate your nearest trainer. And in this period of lockdown, there is no near, no far. So you can use this gift of technology to reach out to anybody. And most importantly, the services which we offer over here of meditation, cleaning, etc., they are free of cost. So the spiritual practices are free of cost. So you can avail it anytime. Thank you so much. And have a good day ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.